and I say count is equal to 0. So I can just increase my count by using this convention, just like we have for the array. So by using this increment, I can just increase my count. So for each time it finds out that the element is equal to 33, it will increase the count. And at the end, I can log my count. So I can come outside here and say console.log count. So this is going to count the number of times I have 33 inside of my array. So the reason why we are creating this count variable is to help us keep track of the number of times we find 33. And the reason why my count is outside is because of local and global variables. Because if I have my count inside of my for loop, then I won't be able to access it outside here. And if I have my count inside of the for loop, it is going to be for each iteration. So it would not wait till the end of the whole array before I can get my total count. So if I go into my VS Code now and I run node index.js, um, let's see. It says here assignment to constant variable. Okay, so I just need to make this a let so I can change that. And when I run this again, you can see that it is returning 3. So, and if I count in my array, I can see that I have 33 in 3 places, 1, 2, and 3. So this is how you can loop through arrays, then perform some actions based on each iteration that you've looped through. So I hope you guys are still with me. Remember, if you have any question, you can just raise up your hand so we can go through it. Okay. So the next concept we'll be going over are objects. So we'll be looking at JavaScript objects. And um okay. Yeah. So like well, I hope we can remember that there are two ways to create objects in JavaScript. So the first way is using this method. So let's say we have a user and we would have curly braces for the properties of the object. So this person can have a name, let's say John, and each property would be separated by comma. So there can be age, and so just like we have normal properties, we can also have functions. So we can have object methods. So let's say um speak, and this would be void. Sorry. So let's say speak, and this would be void. So just like we have properties in our object, we can have object methods as well. But let's see the different things we can do to objects. So just like arrays, we can access the values So we can use this convention to access the values of um, object properties. So we are going to call the object, then the property name. Remember, this is a key value pair for the property. So I have the key here and I have the value here. So when I say console.log user.name, I am expecting to get the value of that name. And because I can get the value of the name in JavaScript, I'm able to even modify that value. So before I say console.log, let's say I come here and I say user.name is now equal to io. So when I do a console.log, you can see that the name has now changed to io. So, and just like we have for arrays as well, we can also loop through objects. But before we do that, the other way of creating objects is by saying let user be equal to new object. So this is going to create an object. Then you can now decide to call your user and add new properties to that user. But you won't see this practice being used. So we'll be using the first method to create our object. Now to loop through objects, so loop looping through objects. So to loop through objects in JavaScript, I can use the for in loop. So the for in loop, and this goes as follows. So I can say for in. So there is already like the snippet through IntelliSense here. So you can just select that and it will create that for you. So you can see here it says for const key in object. So this one is looping through each of the objects in each of the key in our object. So because we are going through the keys in this object, we are able to get the the property value of each key. So just like we have done before, so I can simply come here and say for const key in user. So remember my object here is user. So for each key, so for like each key inside of my user, I can access each key and access each value at that key. So I can say console.log key. Then I can also log whatever I have at that particular key. So let's see what happens when I run node index.js. So let me just clear this. So we can see that in my console, I have the key, the first key. So I have the first key, which is name, then the value, which is John, and I have the second key, which is age, then the value, which is 30. So this is how you can loop through the properties we have in our object using the for in loop. So we can also use another method called object.keys. So this object.keys allows us to get all of the keys inside of the object. So I can say console.log. So let's see what object.keys would even return for my user object. So I'm trying to get the keys for my user object. So when I run this, you can see here that it returns my it returns my key or my keys in an array. So now here I have an array of my keys which I can then make use of to get the values. So I can come here now and use my for loop. So let's say so let's say so we're saying like for each key of keys. So and my keys in this case is going to be all of the keys from my object.keys.user. So I can either decide to add this here like this, or create a variable keys and assign all of my keys to that variable. So this way is cleaner. So I would say for each key in keys, or for each key of keys. So remember, my keys here is going to return an array. So for each array, or for each element in the array, I can decide to access that element. I can decide to do this and get each element in the array by calling my object and calling the key at that iteration. So when I run this, we can see that we have name John, age 30. And that's because we are getting the keys by using the object.keys method. And we are going through each of the keys. So we are going through each of the keys. Then we are accessing the value at that particular key. So we're accessing the value that matches that key inside of my object. So those are the two methods we have for looping through objects. So do you guys have any question? Any questions so far?
Hello, good morning.
Yeah, good man.
Yes, I want to ask let's say declaration of a variable now. Instead of declaring the variable, can it be user input? Like let the user input the data.
Yes,
Okay, for the for loop.
for the for loop.
Yes, in the object method.
Wait,
Looping through the
I don't
object.
think I
Can
get
it
that.
be converted like for example, let the user be inputting the data.
I don't think I get your question.
Okay, for
Which part?
example, okay, like for the first part, you said let user equals to then open curly bracket, then name John, age 30. Can it be converted to let the user be the program will ask the user to input these details.
Yeah, that's possible.
Okay,
That's possible. Yeah, but it would be from an interface. Maybe when you're working with the DOM. So you need to work with the DOM to create an interface where the user can input the details that you now want to add to your object.
okay,
Yeah, so once the user inputs details, let's say for example, like a sign up form, for example, when the
yes,
user inputs the details, you can get those details and store them in an object like this.